In the Dragon Ball franchise, there has been something that has happened very often throughout the course of the story. Something that fans have gone on to turn into essentially a meme at this point, which even Dragon Ball Super picked up on at one point during the Tournament of Power. That is the question of why don't the Z Fighters and characters for the most part attack an enemy when they're transforming into a higher level of power. Whether it be somebody like Boo who is absorbing somebody, Cell, or, characters in the midst of going into a fusion. Why exactly does somebody not just immediately attack them in the middle of this when they would seemingly have the opportunity to take them out and, in fact, basically wait and just allow it to happen? Is it because of contrived writing, or perhaps is there actually an in-universe reason or multiple why this never happens, which is actually shown explicitly on screen multiple times? In this video, I'm going to discuss that. But before I begin, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and enabling all notifications. That way you can stay up to date with all my future videos. Additionally, make sure to leave a like, share your own thoughts down below, make sure to stick around for the entire video, and let's proceed into that topic. So in the Dragon Ball story, we have a number of examples of this happening. Like, for example, during the fight between Goku and Frieza on Namek. So what exactly happens here? Well, in this case, we see that Goku starts to wait for Frieza to access his 100%. Goku could theoretically just go over there and destroy Frieza in the midst of all this. However, he says right here that he actually wants to see Frieza at his full power. King Kai's yelling at him, saying, "What are you doing? Stop wasting time. Take him out now when he's powering up." And Goku says instead, "You're right. It's just that I might never get a chance like this again, a chance to see the most powerful guy in the universe at his best." And he also wants to defeat him at full power, not just because of the fact that he wants to fight a strong guy, but because he wants to avenge the death of his friend Krillin, who with the Earth Dragon Balls wouldn't have been able to be wished back, as he mentions right here. However, he gets even more in-depth into this, as we could see, where he mentions that he's purposely going to let Frieza go to his 100% because he wants to take him down at his best so that he has no regrets as a warrior, and so not just that, but he will be able to shatter Frieza's pride, which he later does at the end of their fight. Now, another thing is that Frieza also wanted this to happen, because Frieza, as Goku points out right here, could just blasted Namek again and ended everything right then and there. Instead, Frieza laughs because he knows that Goku is correct, because he actually wants to, for the first time in his life, go 100% power and actually get a challenge, because Frieza is basically like a god compared to most characters. He's, as he points out, a dinosaur compared to an insect, an ant. And so, for the fact that he could finally fight against the thing that he feared most, the Super Saiyan, and push himself to his 100% doing so, this is the biggest reason why Goku and Frieza allowed this particular moment to happen. However, Frieza also does do something later on that leads into my next point, which is, as we could see, when Frieza powers up to his 100%, we see this burst of power coming forth from him at the time. Now, why is this important? Because essentially, let's say that a character who is not as powerful as Frieza at his 100%, or even somewhat equivalent to it, went to try and attack Frieza during this particular moment. When a character is powering up in Dragon Ball, they are actually releasing a lot of energy, which is exiting rapidly from their body, at an output which could be even possibly greater than what their power level might be at the time during that interim. A perfect example of this moment comes from the scene where Cell had absorbed Android 18 as his semi-perfect self. And when he is transforming into Perfect Cell, what do we see? We see that in the midst of his metamorphosis, he is surrounded by a very powerful aura and energy. You could actually see the way that Toriyama is drawing this right here. It looks like it's more condensed and compressed than a typical aura that we could see from somebody like Vegeta or Trunks. And so what happens? Well, Trunks actually intelligently, as some people might say, says, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to stop him from powering up and getting to his complete self, which I wanted to do the whole time, but my stupid father decided not to do that. Well, what do we see? When Cell is powering up, he actually automatically is releasing a force field. This isn't something that Cell is doing as a technique. This is happening subconsciously as his power is changing, as he's transforming into his perfect form. So Cell cannot actually have his self being harmed, even though Trunks is a lot more powerful here than Cell in his semi-perfect self, and so too is Vegeta. Neither of them actually would be able to stop Cell from being able to power up here. Trunks is doing his best. He kicks him, he punches him, and as we see right here, the force field and the energy that's projecting from Cell's body is expanding more and more and more, and eventually Trunks and everyone has to brace themselves because of the release of power here. So Cell is doing something that so many of the other characters, when they're powering up, are also doing. And during this fight against Goku, Frieza basically replicates this in terms of a technique, where he outputs so much energy, again, the aura looks quite similar here, and he actually creates this force field, which is essentially Frieza's technique. And Goku, when he was firing his Kamehameha, even though he had a power level higher than that of Frieza, he was actually overpowered by the output of the augmented concentrated ki that Frieza did, which allowed him to go around and circumvent the Kamehameha, smash into Goku, and send him down into the ground, which was the best hit that Frieza got on Goku during the course of their fight. This is something that we see happen numerous times throughout the story. Like, for example, when Vegeta is going to his full power in the Saiyan Saga. Even though Goku with his Kaioken would be able to deal some damage to Vegeta during this point in time, if he were to, say, use his Kaioken ×2, the fact of the matter is that Vegeta is draped in this energy when he's going up to his full 18,000 power level, and as Goku points out, the energy that's being output by Vegeta just powering up and unleashing his energy is making the entire planet shake, and this only increases more and more and more as the characters like Goku, when he goes to Super Saiyan 3, outputs so much energy when he transforms that his energy literally expands beyond the bounds of the universe to where it could be sensed outside the traditional sphere in the Kaioshin realm. And then Goku, when he powers up, he's already in his mastered grade 4 Super Saiyan. And so he's unleashing power right here, and we see these massive gusts of wind. We see these characters here being blown back, all of whom are incredibly powerful. In the anime version, we actually see Mr. Satan get blasted away, and Android 16 has to help him. So every time a character is either going to their full power or they are transforming, especially, they essentially put out so much energy, which is one of the biggest reasons why Goku and Gohan actually mastered Super Saiyan in the first place, so they would expend significantly less energy when they transform, and then in turn they could power up, conserving as much of their energy as they had in their bodies as possible, and then utilize that during the course of a fight, which is part of the reason why they were so much more powerful than the other Super Saiyans and characters at the time, on top of getting huge boosts in their base forms during their time training in the time chamber. And I actually went in depth about how Gohan helped Goku to get stronger in a video you guys can see in the top right corner. So I think in universe, this is one of the biggest reasons why characters do not attack somebody when they're powering up, because they physically would not be able to. They get pushed back by all the power being released and unleashed at the time, as we see demonstrated perfectly in the Cell Saga by Trunks. Additionally, during the very same arc, what do we see? Well, we find another reason why the characters refuse to do this. We see this during the fight between Android 18 and Vegeta, where, as we could see right here, Android 17 points out, when addressing the Z Fighters, it's obvious that each of you respects the warrior's code, but I feel it's only proper to warn you anyway. If any of you interfere with Vegeta in number 18's one-on-one fight, I'll have to step in. So essentially, each of the Z Fighters is a warrior. They are characters in the Dragon Team, Goku's different rivals, and all of his friends and even adversaries that he's accumulated over the course of time, who believe in allowing the most honorable, respectable battle as possible to engage. And thus, in turn, this means that they will not intervene in a one-on-one fight when this would cause something to become unfair or unbalanced in the way of one particular fighter or not. Android 17 also respects this in the manga version and the original Dragon Ball story, in which we see that he refuses to intervene and also doesn't want 16 to intervene either, and he only actually does so when Trunks jumps in during the fight between 18 and Vegeta. As we can see right here, Android 17 goes in action, proceeding to one-shot Trunks after he hits him from behind, and then fighting all the other Z Fighters who jump in at that point because their hands have been forced in the matter, which leads to them all getting defeated and stomped. So again, this is another reason probably why they do not attack an enemy when they're powering up. Now, interestingly, in Dragon Ball Super, we do see that Android 17 does go against this idea that he portrays in Dragon Ball Z, in which he actually attacks Ribrianne when she's in the midst of transforming. And Android 17 stopped her and then was confused why everyone else was reacting negatively to it. But again, he already knew this back in Dragon Ball Z. So, that's, I guess, another example of a character being written a little bit off in Dragon Ball Super. Because not only is it more honorable to fight an enemy when they are at their full power, but also it'd be dishonorable and against the warrior's code to attack them during this power-up, because they're essentially, aside from the barrier, they might be in their eyes if they're way stronger and able to, say, circumvent the power of that barrier, which Goku would have most likely been able to do here in this case because his power was significantly above Frieza's, except using a technique like I showed before. That goes to suggest that, again, they wouldn't want to attack an extremely vulnerable enemy because, again, that would be going against their warrior code. Now, there are other factors we could consider, like, for example, they're so shocked and overwhelmed by the situation happening at the time to where they can't jump in because they're basically frozen with fear or shock during that particular point in time. The power of the enemy being sensed is so significant that they don't really see the point, or perhaps that they are instead kind of formulating an idea of how to approach the enemy, just seeing just how strong they become and if they can handle it, in turn assessing everything during the interim when an enemy is powering up. Out of universe, you could say it's just because Toriyama, well, he wrote it this way. He wanted things to go about this way. He wanted to show off the new form that he had designed and come up with in his head that he then conveyed through us to us through the actual drawings and illustrations that he did in the manga every single week. And he thought it would be way more fun and more of an interesting sort of story if he allowed the villains and the characters to power up. So that is why I believe that characters do not attack the enemy when they are transforming in Dragon Ball. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments section. What do you guys think? Additionally, if you're new here, consider subscribing, enabling all notifications so you can see all my videos like this, my streams, and that much more. And leave a like, share this video out. Thanks for watching this far. You guys are awesome, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.